jump into the real F1 26 cars. You can see the Formula 1 2026 26 cars over here line up so beautifully, of course, for me, and we will take you just like we did pretty much last year, and also the year before, as we start the second third of the Formula 1 season. We will take you here to the circuit where we've driven that beautiful Ferrari Spider sports car, the circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia, and of course there will be a lot to talk about. Actually this hot lap, it will be interesting to see how well I can do over here, because I've only done 10 laps, that's right, due obviously to the later release than during the previous couple of seasons. We are not really doing the fastest laps, right, which we will see when exactly they will come up, but probably only for Christmas. Again, I do not actually have so much of the experience with it. I have to say, of course, we will do the time trial, so there is not so much of the battery management, to do and everything. But yeah, the cars definitely have, I would say, amazing drivability, especially in at the low speeds and in the lower gears. And I think that is actually the secret, to the very good lap. And you will always have to actually, run up the reps as much as you can to deliver the ultimate lap time, which is actually significantly slower here at the circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia. Of course, as you will pretty much see. So we will take you in during, first we will take a look at the setup, which is quite a bit different, but again, with the straight mode, it doesn't actually, I would say, the setup matter, as much as obviously the battery deployment and how well you can then release that energy throughout the wonderful lap around the wonderful circuits, one of the 4 tracks that we have been to. So I hope you will enjoy now the F1 26, the hot laps. You can then compare them, of course, to the F1 25 hot laps, but yeah, it is a lot of fun as we are chasing the World Championships. We will, of course, do the warm-up lap, to tell you about some of the changes, especially, the way, not only maybe how you tackle the corners, but especially the throttle application, where I think that young Italian boy is excelling. So it's a lot about the feeling to, I would say, drive these cars, and then we will go on a hot lap and try to get within 2 seconds of our personal best. Again, we've only done 10 laps over here, so this is really on a short notice. So normally we would have more time to prepare, but still I think I deliver amazing performance. I know there's so much more to get, and I've been to the circuit, so I know it on the back of my head. And it's a bit pity obviously that we won't be racing here in Barcelona, the Olympic city, next year, but now we will be coming back in the even years, and I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. So are you ready for our first ever F1 26 hot lap? Of course you are. So let me climb over here into this beautiful cockpit. Obviously for the first time over here we are actually using the long sleeves, which I think I hope it will work just fine. And of course we will take for a spin this beautiful Scarlet Ferrari, and we will take it over here to none other than Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia. Okay, so over here you can see a few of the changes that we made, especially over here with our wonderful setup. We are obviously using the long sleeve fashion. I think we will manage it a little bit better in terms of the fashion usage this year. So 16 times you will see me over here doing the laps, and we start with around 9, which really is only around 7 of the championship. So over here, that's straight. I haven't felt any so-called clipping or the loss of the power, which is pretty good. But again, we will see how it goes, especially when we start the career. So everybody, let's take a look over here at how the cars have to be set up. So that will obviously be very important, right? So let's go over here and check it out. Okay, so here we will of course go and take our the setup, the only one that we've really used over here. So the fuel load, that's given at 10 kg, so 10 kilograms. You gotta stay there with that fuel load. Now for the aerodynamics, so again, this track is wonderful. It's a real pity that it's leaving the calendar, but it's wonderful in terms of that it has kind of all kinds of the corners. So front wing aero, we will put it very high at 42. Why is that? Yes, because again, there's a lot of the straight modes, right, where you can lift both the front and the rear wing. So actually, that can definitely help you with downforce. A rear wing only at 31, so quite a big difference over here. But actually I found the cars to be really nice and drivable, I would say maybe not as great as the F124 cars, but definitely very, very close, to them. The transmission differential adjustment on throttle on 80%, so we won't go all the way to the 100 over here. It works just fine. Differential adjustment of throttle then at 40%, which will help us through to get through some of the turns, and the responsiveness of the car was good in just the 10 laps that we did. For the suspension geometry, so we put it all the way to the minimum. Front camber at minus 3.50 degrees, rear camber at minus 2.00 degrees, front toe out at 0.00 degrees, rear toe in at 0.10 degrees. Suspension all important over here. So actually it's quite similar, not such big changes with the suspension here. Front suspension very, very firm at 41, rear suspension then at 17. Front anti-roll bar at 15 and rear anti-roll bar at 12. So quite a firm ones, which is not usually what we would run. Front ride height at 22, rear ride height at 44. Again, you want to run the car as low as possible, not so much of the bouncing. The cars, they handle really well. For brakes, front brake bias, now I guess it's our favorite 56%, even though it wasn't so easy to always slow down the car. Again, 30% I believe of the downforce was taken out of the cars, and you can definitely feel it. And brake pressure at 100%, for optimal braking performance. For the tires, front right tire pressure will be at 24.2 psi per square inch. From left tire pressure then at 24.2 psi per square inch. So again, softer tires, because you do need some good traction over here, and with the straight mode, that pretty much gives you all the speed, so you don't need to run such a hard tires, so to speak, right? In terms of the air pressure. Rear right tire pressure at 20.9 psi per square inch, rear left tire pressure at 20.9 psi per square inch. So this is the setup that we will use, and again, I have to say, I was surprised by how nice the cars handle, even though my best time of 1:16.502 is far, far behind of what it should be. And here, before we go on the track, you can see over here that the display has also changed. But again, I really wonder when the game proper, I guess, comes next year with the F127, just how much different, the cars are. Because this, the F126, which is basically, put onto the F125, feels eerily similar, especially in terms of the setup to what really, the F1 cars, the ground effect cars really were, which to me would indicate, that there is much more to come. So everybody, this was the setup. Now let's take a look at the warm-up lap. Okay, so over here, so we hope everything will be functioning properly. Obviously, lots of teams having the problems over here, as we are having this lovely, lovely setup. And so here we will take it. From the computer, the chicane all grounded, Michael Schumacher has recommended, so you will be hitting 6th gear. This stays the same, but it is very difficult over here to get to the 7th gear. So you basically stay in a 6th gear, but you cannot just, go through this corner in that 6th gear. You have to lift up a little bit, and then here I will engage the straight mode. As over here, we can see this is for the driver's experience, and of course, that's the podium! Yes, and here, Angel Amy was obviously watching us, so this is the best place obviously to watch the cars go from. So 6, 7 gear over here, it will be important, because obviously you want to pull up the turbo, to go the higher revs. Over here I found out, when you go very high revs, that it actually does deliver a bit more speed, a bit more of the lap time. But again, in the time trial, as you can see, maybe a little bit from the setup, but it's obviously covered by my beautiful scarlet red shoes. When it tells you when the straight mode will finish, I keep that in, obviously, for everybody's reference. But basically you can see the battery mode is not there. You have to brake a little bit earlier for turn 1, as you will wait to all of the fans and probably go down to the 3rd gear for better drivability, and then quickly through the gears. So you go to the 4th gear and then the 5th gear, stay within the limits. The car is nice and planted with this setup. I have to say, I was on it pretty much immediately. Over here, you want to be accelerating through the corner, and again, using lots of the reps, because 50% is the battery, right? So it does need, for example, to be used with the great effect. 6, 7 gear, brake around this Qatar Airways billboard, and you go to the 4th gear. And here the car rotates nicely. Again, not too early on the power, but you gotta make sure that you play nicely with the gears. 4th, 5th, gear, and nice change of the direction this Ferrari really feels splendid over here. I did find the downshifts to this corner, where obviously Verstappen cost himself the title by crashing into Russell, to be quite challenging. You know, it's not easy to have 1, 2, 3. A lot of the times the car would stay in a fourth gear, but it is important that you hit it just as I did, as the main grandstand opens up, and then here you go 4th, 5th gear, and almost obviously the 6th gear. It's hard to get to the 7th gear. Like, you can definitely feel the loss of the performance. 4th gear is preferred, but 3rd gear, you know, and the very high revs, you know, you can easily, you know, ride the curves, and the car is, I think, the stables of the most stable that it's ever been over here through this section, which is fantastic news. So then 4th, 5th, the 6th, obviously we've been going here in the Ferrari car, and here we have to actually lift a little bit. So normally it was just going full power and then engage the straight mode. We can show it to you how it looks like. Look at that. Okay, and obviously the front of the wing, you can't really see it. You know, the cars are a bit more bulky this year, but you will be pummeling down over this nice viewing spot. And over here you can see you have to brake around here, around the 100-meter board. This is where the straight mode will finish, and you really have to brake early, because the braking performance, like Leclerc was saying, is really poor on these F126 cars. So you go 3rd gear, and then here you can really apply a lot of the throttle. 4th, 5th gear, and then you can rotate it over here, go down to the 4th gear, and again try to go on the throttle as quickly as you can, as I'm preparing for that super hot lap, to make sure that you have a great exit, so that you can deliver a magnificent lap time. So, are you ready to see Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya with F1 26 cars at the fastest speed? Of course you are. So everybody, let's go, Vivian, the Spalding champion. Okay. This is Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya. Look at this, and we are pulling the turbo end, guys. We are green. Come on, Jan, you can do this. 4th gear, little bit of a look up there. Now we are pushing it. Come on. Here you can go full throttle. Come on, Jan. We are 2 deads up. Can we make this on a hot lap? We are purple. We are green. No! Wow! That prancing horse really gonna be prancing. But we just stay within the limits. Wow! What a save! Left little bit here, straight mode engage. Come on, yeah. This could have been a fantastic hot lap, but and let's go for it, come on! This is it! Big lift, but we made it, but look at this, 117.8, yes. That's 1.3 seconds from our overall best, so I think we can park the car over here, and yeah, we made it. Okay, within the 2 seconds, but actually, we really wanted to tackle it. So the first purple sector, that you've seen again, I know that there has been easily, I've actually done 10 laps on the 11th. I was, like something like 6, 7 tenths up, so I was thinking like, we can actually really challenge it, but yeah, you can see, just how much slower the cars are, how important, that the battery and the deployment is, and yeah, I thought, I did a pretty good job, but you could see, for example, I was already going, slowly, right, through that 5th turn. But yeah, the prancing horse, really wanted to jump, but what a great catch by the champion, yes. So let me know how you love this hot lap, the first ever F126 hot lap, yeah. That's right. Yeah, so we definitely hope over here there are lots of obviously news coming up over here. And we will see again what that means for our competitiveness. But here you can finally see, obviously the first 6 or 8 races, depending how you see it. We couldn't, obviously with such a whole some changes, with the battery deployment and what have you over here. The F1 has really changed a lot. It's a new era. It's a bit of a pity, but remember F122, that was also a game, a great racing simulator that was released much later over here. So Of course, that's only to be expected, and I think you really enjoyed this hot lap. I certainly did. What a pity that we actually haven't made it stick, because that was a massive. We definitely lost over here our personal best. Yeah, guys, we lost 1.6 seconds through there, but I was actually faster in sector 1 by 3/10 and also faster in sector 3. So yeah, I lost it all in that sector. If I kept it in, you guys, we would have smashed it by probably half a second. So let's go, yeah, Svaldikside champion. These F1 26 hard laps, they will be a lot of fun, because we will only be doing 10 laps, then jump into the cockpit and see over here how well we can handle it. I'm happy that the lap wasn't invalidated. It's kind of easy to get invalidated here at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. But yeah, this is how the F1 26 cars are. At least that's from what we can see. I'm sure there's pretty much more, especially the career mode. I really cannot wait to try it. So obviously we're chasing the championships for Scuderia Ferrari. Oh yeah. So everybody, all we can say is we love Barcelona. Obviously, we are big fans of FC Football Club Barcelona. That beautiful shoe is now holding my scarlet red iPhone that is recording this wonderful video. And again, I hope it will be a proper place for that La Liga title celebration. And of course, I'm really sad that we didn't win the Champions League FIFA Club World Cup. Because here with the Ferrari, with the new obviously rules, as we can now the Mercedes-Benz, but I think also the Red Bull engine will be severely affected by the new rules over here. The less of the compression engines, less of the compression ratio for the pistons. So this is, I think, the key race for the whole championship, and I cannot wait to see how it will pan out in front of the champions from the Football Club Barcelona, the best football team in the world. That's right. So everybody, now all we can say is that Forza Barca, and we love racing, we love Formula 1, we love Ferrari. Say it with me, Forza Barca, Forza